bed? What side of the bed do you sleep on?
I guess I used to. Which
Yeah, we're used to being on this side of the screens from each other, huh?
I know. So used to as well.
Well, that was our cool new background music. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Now we're a TV show, so we're going to be proper.
I know. Well, maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
Us be proper? I don't know.
Yeah, well,
So this is WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio and TV and podcast, the #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Barry and Christine talking about, let's talk about dating. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine. It's going to be fun today.
I think so. This is something we've talked about for a while.
Yeah,
What?
It always is fun. It always is fun, but this is going to be special fun.
I think so, because you and I are both readers and big devotees of some really special authors. And so today we get to share our favorite books about dating and relationships.
Yeah, let me preface this though. It's some of our favorite books because we didn't cover all of them, just to be clear.
Oh, it was hard to narrow it down. And, even with both of our lists, I'm not sure we'll get to all of them today. But boy, we can sure, people can ask us, and we have recommendations on our websites. And But we can talk about a few of our favorites today.
Absolutely.
Because it's very exciting. So I imagine that one of our favorites that we had in common was the 5 love languages, because we've talked about it so much.
And the funny thing is, I forgot to put it on my list, even though it's one of my favorites. Because again, I was putting stuff on my list and like, there's something else. What is it? What is it? And of course, all the John Gray books you had there. I'm like, you got a few books out there.
Yeah.
The 5 love languages I reference a lot. I recommend people do the test, go online just to find out, because even though it's so simple in a way, it's profoundly impactful on relationships. I mean, based on the fact that Gary Chapman, it's like 30 plus years of being a therapist, he distilled this understanding about the 5 common things that people don't discover or mess up in their relationships. And if they figure out what their and their partner's love languages are, it saves marriages. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. What we have as our favorite thing, so mine is words of appreciation. I am really good at giving that because I like it back. And I was married to somebody his favorite was acts of service, which I like doing the kinds of things that he likes having done. Like I love doing laundry. It's one of my things. And he was so amazed because he'd been married twice before and they hadn't done laundry ever. He'd always done his own laundry. So how fun to figure out that that's what he liked. And I like doing that because he was fine with words of appreciation, but it wasn't his top way of feeling cared about. Yeah. So when I learned that acts of service was his, he liked it when I made dinner. He liked when I organized all of his medications because he'd always done all that stuff for himself. So when you find out what the other person's is, and often, most of the time, it's going to be different than yours, then you can come up with ways of making them feel loved. And then you tell them what yours is and how you feel loved.
Right. And it's funny because my main 2 aren't yours.
No. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Because
my second one is physical touch, but I was able to rally for the acts of service for him.
Well, physical touch is my primary, and then quality time is my second one.
Yeah.
Because having alone time with my partner is something that's so critical for me. I mean, I love being around people all the time, but having that alone time with them and having quality time with them, even just sitting together, that's like gold for me. So it's so key. It's one of my my secondary is that one. So yeah. So basically, if you haven't got the book, or you haven't done the they call it test, the measurement, what do you call it, the discovery process, you can go to 5lovelanguages.com and do the test for free. Get the book. Recommend it highly. It's a quick read in some ways, but it's so profound in its wisdom. So highly recommended.
Yeah, I think people will be amazed how much they'll learn about themselves and then learn about the other person, and how effective it is when you're giving and getting the way that you feel cared about.
Yeah,
absolutely. It can make, as you said, all the difference in the world.
It can.
Yeah. So I got the pleasure of working with John Gray and made some videos with him. So I'm a big fan of his book. I know. Excuse me.
Yeah, I met him a couple of times with him, like you have. So I'm envious in a way.
Thank you. He's so interesting to be with because he's just like he is on his videos. He's very down to earth, very direct speaking, very humorous. He's very funny.
Yes.
And very talks about the things that have been a challenge for him, which is how he came up with so much of what he wrote about. That, we talked about he was married to Barbara DeAngelis, and that was not good for either one of them. And then when he married Bonnie, he still had some of those challenges, but the way that they were together as partners, he talks about how they made each other just better people.
Which is interesting also in a way, because Barbara DeAngelis, in a way, did similar work ultimately, especially when they got divorced. I mean, she created Making Love Work, which is a big movement inside in LA. And she's written, I don't know, half a dozen books at least herself.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've shared a couple of times where I've heard her talk about 7 years ago, and she dropped some truth in that training that I still use. So even though they were not together, they still had wisdom to bring in their own individual ways. And John Gray stuff, Mars and Venus. I mean, frankly, Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus is probably one of the seminal books on relationships that everybody should read. Because people joke about, Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus as a framing, and they sort of don't understand what it really means.
Yeah.
But the understanding of the difference in how we run, and one of my favorite teachers, Alison Armstrong, is so big into the work too.
Yeah.
And she loves John Gray as well. And it's just when you start to break down what that literally means in how we interact, it is almost like being from different planets.
Yes.
And so even though the title sounds like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
When you read it and understand what he means by it, it's like, oh my God, it's like a mind-blowing experience to recognize, oh, that's why we have issues and conflicts with each other. Because we speak different languages, so to speak. And certainly we demonstrate different languages.
Yes. And that we're not misbehaving, we're just misunderstanding, because we women think, well, how come you don't act like my girlfriend? And you say, as men, gosh, my guy friend would never act like that or say that. And I'm so confused. That then you understand, oh, it's just we're different. And there's really good reasons why we're different. It makes sense why we're different. And then if you ease into it and go, oh, it's not a problem, it's a solution. It really is. And the thing that cracks me up is so often when I talk to people that have read the book, the women think it's all about the man and the men think it's all about the women.
Surprise.
I love that. I think it's so funny. It cracks me up.
I think because what I suspect what the reasoning is for that is because when men or women read the book for themselves, they gloss over the stuff that's about them because they already know that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Read about something else and they're going, oh my God, it's all different. It's all different. It's all different. So it seems like all the books about the other side, which is so funny.
The first time somebody said it, I was surprised. And now so many people have said it. I go, oh, yeah, I guess I accept that. Mm-hmm. It does feel that way. So the basic Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus is a wonderful book. And then he wrote one about Mars and Venus on a date and Mars and Venus in the bedroom. And they talk again about the way that we approach differently dating and how we approach sex differently. And when you go, oh, it's just different, it's not bad or right or wrong, it lowers the tension. It lowers the frustration. And maybe it's more like an adventure, a discovery about yourself and them, which can be way more fun.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's good stuff. So next.
Yeah. And then his other book that I really like, that's really good for your emotional part, your emotional health, is How to Get What You Want and Want What You Have. Because one of the really things that I use all the time is the love tanks, and that there's 10. And if you aren't satisfying all of them, the ones that are empty, the ones that you're not filling up in your life, are the ones that start feeling even more desperate. And the way he plans it is there's 5 before the 6th one, which is a personal romantic relationship. And so if you're not having a feeling that you have a higher power, you don't feel like you have a relationship with family of origin or family of choice, you don't have a way that you're able to care for somebody, you're not doing some things just for you, you don't have a relationship with friends or colleagues, this magic thing that you think is going to fix this romantic relationship becomes so much more desperate. And that's when you're going to attract somebody desperate. So it's really a helpful thing to go, well, where am I? How close and far from 100% am I in each of these tanks? And it's about the middle of the book, but it's one of the tools I use all the time with clients and myself.
Yeah, well, so profound, because the recognizing the fact is that, when we understand that we shouldn't need a relationship or a partner, there'd be something that we add to our lives because our lives are already going well. In fact, the more you have something going on in your life, the more attractive you become, because somebody goes, oh, I want to play in that area. but understanding that to have valuable quality relationships outside a romantic one makes you a better partner.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, it again, it's profoundly simple truth, but it's fundamentals that we need to learn because we don't learn this stuff. And so John Gray brings massive truth to this.
And it's one of the things I've run into with some of the men I've chatted with kind of briefly, because they'll say, what do you do in your life? So I tell them, I coach, I volunteer, I ride horses, I spend time with family. And well, do you even have time to date? I really do. Well, it doesn't sound like you have as much time as I would need. Well, tell me what you do in your life. And they don't have much of a life. They're waiting for somebody to make their life. Yeah. I want somebody that we bring our separate things that we do, and then we have our together things we do, so that it makes it even richer, like a wonderful stew. You need lots of ingredients for a wonderful stew. And that's been really interesting because I have plenty of time to date, and I will still have a life, and hopefully will still continue doing the things that I do. Maybe I'll have double dates with my friends instead of just me with my friends. That would be a really nice bonus. But that's been a really interesting conversation to have with men.
Well, ideally, both your relationship life and your personal life can be additive to each other, complementary in a way together. That's the idea.
Complementary is a good word.
Because if you have one replace the other, you're in trouble.
No, because that's what happens sometimes for singles is they go off to the island of whatever their name is, and they stop living their life and they abandon their friends. And then your life isn't as full or rich anymore. At least mine wouldn't be.
I have been there, done that when in my younger years. So I know the experience of that. It was great at the time, but it's kind of like coming out suddenly go, where'd everybody go? Because you drop connection with everybody else. So yeah,
they all said, where did you go?
Exactly. Yeah. And I have friends who've done that too, disappeared off the planet. I'm like, oh, they're in love. Oh, that explains it.
Yeah. And certainly sometimes at the very first blush, you want to just immerse yourself with this person and keep getting to know them. And also just making sure you touch base with friends, keep some of your interests going. Don't just drop everything like a hot potato.
Right.
Because one of the reasons you were attracted to each other, possibly, is that you had these interests and these things that you were talking about when you were getting to know each other. And if you drop them, it's not who you really were.
Exactly. Fundamental.
So you mentioned Alison Armstrong, and I'm such a fan of her books, boy, The Queen's Code. Oh, gosh. I had the pleasure of being one of the beta readers, and we would get on every week for an hour with her and give her our feedback about the book and what we thought. And oh, my God, I have recommended that to so many clients, and they're like, oh, I see what I've been doing wrong. I see what I could be doing differently. I see how I could honor men more. I could honor me more. I could be more self-assured in my relationships with men. It's so valuable.
I have had the privilege of being in her events and also being on summits with her. And I remember being in the PAX World Tour, must be 4 or 5 years ago now at least, when she came to LA, because she does it in different cities around the country. Although the pandemic skipped that for a couple of years. But her journey and her experience and what she shared from on stage, and also her presence. I've done some online classes with her too, which have been wonderful. But to be in real life with her, and we've had to have some private conversations too, which I love.
Wow.
Is she brings such honesty to her work, and her ability to explain things. And one thing I remember about the PAX World Tour was, and this is why I loved her so much, is because in the room she would make some points, and then she would get feedback from the audience about if she's on track or not, and then she incorporated her own knowledge. She'd learn from the audience. Co-ed event, and it was such profundity for me because her adoption of new understanding just made her more impressive as a teacher. Yep. So yeah, one of my favorite teachers because of that. And the Queen's Code I recommend in my list as well, because it as this book is such a profound gift, I think, to women in general. So it's a really good read for women. And I don't know if women should read it too, just to get a sense of what women are about.
I've not had a man tell me that they read it. I'd be so interested to hear what they thought, because I think it is such an interesting insight into how we're thinking before we know better. That's a lot of what this book starts out with.
Yeah.
We've forgotten, or we haven't been taught. This hasn't been a lesson that's been passed out through the generations, even though in the book, it's something that we did know a long time ago. And I think what I believe is that a man who reads it would feel hopeful at the end. Wow, there really is hope for women to understand men better, treat men better, honor them more, encourage men to be even more honorable, more masculine, more themselves, because we are going to be even more womanly, more receptive, more feminine, the more they're being in their masculinity.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be interesting to have a man give feedback about it. Well, you read it. What did you think? But you're so enlightened.
Oh, thank you so much. See, actually, that book I had not read. I mean,
Well,
I
you
know
haven't read it.
I've done her co-ed courses and listened to a lot of audios and love her dearly. So I'll put them on my list of books to get, because that one
Yeah, I'd be
to read.
interested to hear what you think. That would be pretty fun.
Yeah, that one I haven't read yet. So, and the
And
next two,
when you
sorry.
talked about how transparent she is, I recently heard her interviewed, and she was talking about this new relationships because her husband died suddenly in front of her of a heart attack. And it's now been 3 years, I think. And she's now been in this relationship, I think less than a year. And she says, so, because he says, how's it going? And she goes, well, most of the time it's really good. And he actually moved to Colorado, so we live closer together. She said, but the other day I was mad at him and I went in the bedroom and I slammed the door. Allison Armstrong. I felt like when I told the story about how Tony and I got in that fight and he had to get his list out. And I said, and so we're all listening. And she goes, so Dan came to the door about 10 minutes later and knocked on the door. And she said, I need 10 more minutes. But then she came out and they did the cough it up, throw it up, have the conversation. But she says, I'm still a woman. I'm like, I so get that when there isn't a coach in the room, because it's us. I find that I get it all wrapped up sometimes in my dating life, and I go, but it's different because it's me. I'm trying to give myself the same coachy advice I give my clients, but it feels different because it's me. So how nice that we can be so transparent that we're going through the same things. But here's the woman that has Home Depot. I mean, I tell you, I've got the wall of screwdrivers to keep picking from for your tools. She's got Home Depot at her disposal because she has so many tools. And she still goes in the bedroom in a huff and slams the door. So that made me feel really good. I love that story.
I've heard the story too, because when I did the course with her on the online course last year, she just moved into the house and she has her own part of the house. She didn't give me all the details. It's not this very, and it was also, this was in, I want to say October, November last year. So apparently it was getting cold, and her office space is like a separate building and they didn't have heat yet. So she was having some issues with that. And so it was she was going through lots of change. So what you said just added to the picture of just the journey they've had together. It's been a new experience for her. Yeah, and that's the thing is she shared quite a journey. I mean, her husband was incredible light. I mean, she shares about that. She shared about it in the course with us too, as a reminder. And his gift, I met him when he was at the event when I was there physically. He was such a sweetheart, but it's like he wasn't meant to be on stage with her. She would be on stage, the light shining from the stage, but he would be rock solid in the back of the room. Jovial guy, very down to earth guy. He wasn't like a hero type character. He was just himself. And she shared a story in the course about the convertibles. She said, because he loved cars, and apparently he got a convertible at one point. And she realized that when he died, she realized why he had the convertible, because his spirit was so big he couldn't fit under a roof of a car. Yeah, that was the profound thing she shared in the room. And it's like she feels him. She knew that when he died, he was in a bigger space. He'd grown, like he'd expanded into his fullness in spirit. Wow. So that was a profound share. That was one of those moments to go, I love this woman.
Don't you? And you think you already love her a lot, and then she does something like that, you go, I love her even more.
Yeah.
She's very real, very transparent, very down to earth. Gives great down to earth advice. Is funny. Yeah. We were such a fan club of her.
Yeah. Welcome to the Alison Armstrong fan club.
For sure.
So
what books do you have on your list, darling?
Probably the other two. Before?
So then, Harriet Lerner, who's the woman who did the Dance of Anger and the Dance of Fear, now has. Oh, there you are. A relationship book. So it's called Marriage Rules, and it's really good. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen that book yet. There's a new one for me. So these are
It's
some
pretty
books
new
you
out.
make notes
It's
of. Okay.
pretty new.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found out it from my sister-in-law, who's always on the cusp of the new library books that come out. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's really good. Oh, I froze. It's really good. Love makes the world go round, but love is connected to the heart. So the book, yes, that's the next one I was going to say, the Atlas of the Heart. Yeah, antics. Yeah.
Needs a sequel.
Yeah.
Because
Brene Brown. Brene
Okay.
Brown. Oh my gosh. Yes, Brene Brown. Oh, read the comment out loud. Okay. Love makes the world go round, but love is connected to the heart. So the book Atlas of the Heart needs a sequel. Atlas of the Heart, because
Atlas of the Earth. Atlas of the Earth.
Atlas of the Earth. When spun around, the heart goes back.
So basically, it's Atlas of the Earth, but with a gap between the T and the H, because when the Earth is spun around, the H goes from the back of the word to the front of the word to make heart. A quiet reveal.
I was so missing that. Thank you, Anthony, for listening and for commenting. We appreciate it. Keep it up.
Read that out and figure out what it meant. Yeah, thank you for that, Anthony. I was like, I had to figure
that was so profound. I'm so sorry I messed it up. I really didn't mean to at all.
So let's go back to Marriage Rules for a second. So Marriage Rules, you said, with Harriet Lerner.
Yes.
That's a recent book.
Yes, very new.
And what about, I mean, because I haven't read that book either, so it's a book that's new on my list.
So it's the rules of marriage and relationships and what her personal journey's been in her relationship. So it's a lot of fairly transparent and wonderful chapter headings. So a lot about cementing relationships, a lot about the fluidity of relationships, a lot about how people say, oh, I just want to let it happen, spontaneous. And this is where you're making commitments to each other. You're making structure. You're having some broad rules that you can still be personal in it, but you've worked it out so that each of you feels honored. Each of you feels solid in this relationship, and that you've made the rules together, and you know what is going to happen when you're having these hard conversations, when I'm too tired and this is how I'm going to address it when I'm too tired. I used to tease my wedding couples. I said, you both can't complain at the same time. So you need something like a hat or a scarf. And the person that's wearing to go, oh, your mother, and oh, the plans, and oh, this is so hard and it's so expensive. And the other person just, oh, poor baby. Yep, that's really hard. Sucks a lot. And then you trade, and the other person gets to do all the complaining, and you go, oh, yeah, sucks a lot. And it really helped them get through it. And they told me later on that they've used it in their marriages. And so this is a lot about how to create a structure so that you don't go off into the stratosphere going crazy without some sort of boundaries, without some sort of, and not everybody, it's not like you have to do this. It's like, here's a bunch of options, which I loved, and pick which one resonates with you. Oh, it's so wonderful. It's really a good book. Highly recommend. So you need to add it to your list, Mr.
Well, add to my list, yes. And then so the next one, Atlas of the Heart, which we sort of already mentioned, but more about that. I know, Brene.
Yes. Oh.
I didn't know about this book. You have it in your pile there.
I don't. I took it back to my bedroom because I've almost done. So that one, she also talks a lot about her own personal journeys, which she's done a lot, about the challenges she's had in her marriage with her husband and how they've worked it out, and how hers is a lot more about taking personal responsibility, about what your old stuff is. It's also about how when the bad part comes up, when the hard part comes up, looking at where it is inside of you. Why has that come up? What tender place in you? What old message have you had? What old hurts have you had? And how to address it? And how do you handle your hurt? Do you run away? Do you attack? Do you fold into yourself? And all the options of what to do with each of those things. So you do a lot of personal delving, and then it gives you things to practice with a partner. So this book is for singles and couples for sure.
Good to know.
So now you have another book.
Another book on my list.
Yeah, it's really, And you know how she's such a good writer. I mean, I've really enjoyed everything I've read by her.
Yeah, she brings a lot of truth and message in her work too, so she's pretty awesome.
And then Receiving Love is a book I've had forever. You know, we all know Harville Hendrix, and he writes so many wonderful books about relationships. And if you aren't attracting people that you're happy with, or you've had hard relationships in the past, it's possibly because you don't feel lovable. You don't feel like somebody could ever care about you. And it's a lot of those kind of internal exercises, which he is so all about, you know, writing a letter to the people who have done you wrong in the past, you know, how to handle old resentments, old fears, old angers, so that you can get rid of it, so that you can be a little more clean when you go into a relationship. That was what I got out of that book.
Nice. Yeah, well, he wrote, was it Getting the Love You Want?
Yeah.
That was the big book that's famous about. Yeah. So this is another book I read. It's good to know. Cool. You got
two
by
Susan Jeffers is the one who wrote Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And then she wrote these 2 books about love because of her failed marriage and then her happy marriage, because she was happily married when she died. The Feel the Fear Guide to Lasting Love, which I loved the title. And then Opening Your Hearts to Men. Oh, it was a little bit different angle than Allison, where she does a little more playful. She's a little more playful in her books.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had a male client recommend that one to me, and I really liked it. So those I do have. I have the Bill the Fear one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that one. I really like them a lot. I think. Oh yeah, there's the Opening Hearts to Men.
Nice.
Yeah, so I like her books. I like how she writes. I like her messages. I think that they're very timely and poignant. Nice. And then I am a big person about Myers-Briggs. So the other 3 books were How Opposites Attract. So people think they have to be the same letters, you know, the same 4 letters of Myers-Briggs, or the same numbers in the Enneagram. And you really don't. You can be completely opposite, like in the love languages, as long as you go, oh, this is who I am, and this is who you are. So I have clients that he is very much an extrovert, she is very much an introvert, and they just have an arrangement that sometimes he goes to parties by himself, sometimes they go to parties together. The arrangement is he makes sure she's talking to somebody that she's very happy talking, and then he can go do his flitting around, and he keeps checking in with her, and she has a signal that she gives him a half an hour warning, because she knows he can't say goodbye in 5 minutes. So when she's getting close to being ready, because she used to say, okay, I'm ready to go, and he goes, but I can't, I have to say goodbye to all these people. So now he knows, okay, it's a half an hour. He says his goodbye, and then they leave, and it really works out well for them. So Opposites Attract shows you who you are. It has nice quizzes to figure out what letters you are, and then who the other person is, and then what's your strengths, what their strengths is, how do your strengths work together, what weaknesses are going to be a challenge for each of you, and what ways to work on that. And then the are you my type or am I yours does some similar things, but in a little bit different way. So I recommend both of those. I think that they're both really, especially if you're the kind of person like me and you that like learning about what's going on inside of you and what's going on inside of the other person. I read some of the stuff and I go, oh yeah, that's so me. That's so me. Oh, I never looked at it like that. Oh yeah, that's so me. That's so me. Oh, I never looked at it like that. I mean, that's what's fun about, I think, reading those books, because you get to discover more stuff about you.
So it's based on the Myers-Briggs premise then.
Yes. So there's that one.
Show and tell everywhere.
And there's that one. Yeah. See, the only one I didn't have is the Atlas one, because I was finishing. So it's next to my bed. And then I know I mentioned this on another show before, because boy, if it's awful and you're awful in a relationship or a marriage and you're just not sure, should I stick it out? Is there help? You know, should we go to counseling? Something? Should we have a separation? Or do we just need to call it off? That this is this. I mean, really, is it too good to leave or too bad to stay? It gets to the nitty-gritty. It asks you the challenging questions, the hard questions. You know, are you staying because you're afraid to leave? That's not a good reason. And how do you get unafraid? Do you need to get a job? Do you need to go live with a friend? Because if it's a really bad situation, you just can't stay. Yeah. And if it's not, then how could you improve it? How could they improve it? How can you improve it together? So that's what that book is all about.
Nice. I think it's a good time to do a break, because it's like this is all of your list, and I'm going to do my list after the break. It makes a good segue.
Your list. Yes. Let's see if Cece's ready for that, since you just threw it in the front of her. Is it time for a break?
I think it's time for a break. We'll see you in a minute. And we're back. Well, I'm back. I think Christine been taking a quick break. All right, so I guess it's going to be my list coming up. So Cece will give me a notification. I'm going to start without her. Okay. There she is. She's back. Oh, you're muted.
So there's the...
Oh, the Atlas of the Heart. Yes. That's a hefty book.
It's so heavy, and it has this special really thick paper, so it's really heavy.
Nice. All right, so let's start with my list. Just to be clear, my list is a blend of both spiritual books and relationship books. So that's what I'm getting into. So the first two books actually are two books that changed my life from the get-go. So I want to speak about those for a minute because they're very close to my heart, which is Johnson Lives as a Seagull and Illusions by Richard Bach. Johnson Lives as a Seagull, I read probably 3 times in like 4 hours. I read it the first time, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I had to go back and read it again and then read it again. I was in tears every time because that book for me was the, I think it was the spark that changed my life. I just didn't know it until a few years later. But that book, because the premise of the story is that basically it's a seagull that figures out there's more to life than being a seagull, and the transcendent journey he goes through, and the ability to see beyond our limits and then take action to get beyond those limits. So I love that book for that very reason. It's, again, very simple book, nothing to do with humans. It's all about seagulls and not about relationships, was profound. And then I read Illusions, which is a whole different book, and it's also a seminal book, Richard Bach. I think the subtitle is The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. And it's the premise about this guy who basically just drops wisdom wherever he goes. And the author is or the narrator of the book is, I won't say overwhelmed, but certainly tested by him. And the quotes in the book, which are from the Messiah, Reluctant Messiah, so to speak, like the way to be discovered your mission on earth is finished. If you're still here, it isn't. Or members of the same family are very rarely born under the same roof. I mean, I've got a list of about 10 different quotes in the book. There's so many. You can find them online. And I got to meet Richard Bach once, back when they used to do Learning Annex events in LA, which is many years ago now. He did a live talk in Santa Monica. And he's a very tall guy. I mean, he reminds me of John Cleese in his body posture and structure. He's very tall. So he's got a similar sense of humor and very conscious spiritual teacher. And he's got, I mean, I've read all his books, I think except one of them. So he's got like 8 books out, I think, something like that. I remember Bridge Across Forever, Calling in the One. No, excuse me. One. Damn, there's a few other books that just went out of my head. Okay, anyway, it's a bunch of books. So those two are my favorite ones from his. Conscious Loving and The Conscious Heart, which I believe is the revision of Conscious Loving. I haven't read The Conscious Heart, but from what I've been told, it's a revision of it by Gay and Kathleen Hendricks. These two people, the husband and wife, I've met them a few times. They're profound teachers. Gay Hendricks is a prolific writer. He's written 2 fictional books about a spiritual detective. He also wrote a book called The Big Leap, which is a great book to read for men, especially about upper limits and about how to go through them. But Conscious Loving, which I read in grad school, I mean, the book's got to be at least 30 years old now. And it's the best book I know of that speaks to codependence and how to crack that egg, so to speak, to see where we're out of alignment and how we get enmeshed and get so caught up in it. One of the most profound pieces I took from that book in Conscious Loving was a thing called the microscopic truth. And that piece is when we remember to be totally transparent in what we're speaking about, that total vulnerability of authentic truth. That book taught me that. So I'm a big fan of their work, and that book in particular, Conscious Loving, is such a rich and useful book. I mean, the tips and tools that you got from the book were just profound. I said I read the book 25 years ago, so recommend it highly. And The Conscious Heart is the revised edition that's more modern, more up to date, which is a good book too. So if you can get Conscious Loving, great. If you can't get The Conscious Heart, it's just as good. So that's that one. Yes. Now we get into the fundamental books. See, Queen's Code's in there. But The Way of Superior Man by David Data. I've studied with David Data like for a few times being in his retreats. But The Way of Superior Man, that book I actually heard about from 2 women before I even knew about David Data. I actually got this book, I got that awareness. These 2 women, I remember meeting them vividly. I remember both of them. They basically showed me this book saying, you should read this book. And of course I ignored them. I should have read it back then. I didn't. I wish I had. But basically the simplicity of the book is, just to explain it, The Way of Superior Man is about 32 chapters, something like that. But each chapter is written in short, like 3-page segments, so that men can read it without losing their focus, which is good. But they were reading it because for them, it really showed them, and I agree with them. It's the best book for a woman to read to discover what sort of man they really want to be with. It's also a great book for men to read to know how to be that sort of man. And I'm a passionate champion. I actually did, after I took my first retreat with Warrior Sage, I led some men's groups with this book. So I taught from the book and used the book as a guide system to help the men to really start to embody the truths of that book so profoundly. So I love that book for that.
And I love all of his books. I love all of his books. You've recommended them to me too.
Yeah, well, Dear Love is one of his books he's written for women, because The Way of Superior Man is for men, although it's a lot of times for women to understand men, which is good. Dear Lover is for women because it's written it's a very, I want to say, poetic's not the right word, but it has such a gentleness to it, the way that it speaks to women owning their femininity in a beautiful way. And a little side story, a little personal story. I remember I had that book, and a girl I was dating at the time, I decided to record me reading the chapters of the book for her to read in the bathtub when I wasn't with her, so she could get some value from it. She wasn't prepared for the depth of the book, I think. so say la vie.
It was a very thoughtful thing to do, though. For the right person, it could have been terrific.
That's the thing. I mean, just consider it practice.
That's what we always do with our dating, yes.
Right. And so David Data has a bunch of books like Blue Truth, Finding God Through Sex, Conscious Coupling? No, Conscious Sex? What's it called? He has got a bunch of books there too. So yeah, but the Way of Spirit Man is his seminal book, recommended reading for men and women. The Love is a great book for women. I don't think it's as strong as that. He has a book called It's a Guy Thing, which is supposed to be a book for women about men. But frankly, I think it's a softened version of The Way of Spirit Man. So I'd say, ladies, read that one first. You're going to read It's a Guy Thing first, great. But in a way, it's kind of like it's not quite as hard hitting as The Way of Spirit Man is. So I recommend that highly. And then, of course, The Queen's Code, which we've already shared prolifically about, so I don't need to repeat that. But Alison is just an amazing teacher. She hasn't written as many books, but still is good. Mm-hmm. So another couple of spiritual books. Michael A. Singer is an amazing author. In fact, I listen to his books on audio. He's a great orator too. I think in a way it's the other way around. I should have put it the other way. The Untethered Soul is his book on spirituality. It's really about how to live an untethered life, how to live in a way of detachment and flow and grace to let your life work. And in a way, it works in a relationship too, because if you can be in a relationship in an untethered way, so you're not invested in how things work out in terms of like, they have to say the right thing, do the right thing, or I'm going to be unhappy. If you can be untethered in terms of being able to be with the flow of the relationship and be detached in a way to your partner so that they can be free to be themselves, be invested in how they feel, make sure you make them happy, yes, but be untethered enough so that you can actually be witness to them and love them dearly without having to make the conditional about it. So that's a profound book for that sense. The Surrender Experiment is a funny book in a way, because not funny in the sense of it's interesting. The Surrender Experiment is actually Michael Singer's, it's also basically an autobiography. The Surrender Experiment, I read the title, and that's interesting. And there's great power in surrendering. What he talks about in his journey, he's had an incredible life. If you read, he started out as a student in an ashram back in when he was like late teens, early 20s. But his journey through life and how everything made sense along the way after you look back at it, like hindsight. The power of this book, I love it because it really got me to imagining how everything before led me to where I am now in a way it's very valuable. His journey was quite profound. He had some big successes, he had some losses, he has to deal with the FBI. It's quite a book. It's not just like a woo-woo book. It's very, very true about his life and what happened and the adventures he had. But the message through the whole book is the teachings beyond it. And for me, that book is a profound book. So both The Untethered Soul and Surrender Experiment are highly recommended books for me. I don't know if you read them, either one of them.
No, I'm going to go back and write all these down for sure. You can email it to me in your list. And the thing too, with that particular thought is, aren't there times when we're in the middle of going, oh, it's never going to work out? And if we could remember, oh, but this has happened before or something similar enough, and it really did work out, it gives us that extra little oomph to get through the really hard, sucky part.
For me, this point about Surrender Experiment for me was such a key recommendation, because it's almost like there's that story, the old-fashioned story about the man who was asked to check in with his neighbor, and asked the neighbor how he was doing. He said, "Oh, it's okay, but my son broke his leg." And the guy says, "Oh, that's bad." He said, "It wasn't bad. He didn't get drafted into the military." "Oh, that's good." It wasn't so good. It's like the idea about being not attached to the left, good or bad. I was thinking about this morning about the way the Surrender Experiment is, that methodology is being fluid in the sense of being with doing what you're doing, but not so hooked in that if it doesn't work out the way you want, that you're too attached to let it change. And what he shares in that book is those examples of when he held things with a lighter grip versus being fixated on it, he saw bigger things happen than he could have imagined. And if we just did that in our lives, that rocks.
If we all could do more of that.
Absolutely.
Our lives would be so much smoother.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. And the thing, again, it's about surrender. And it is an experiment in a way, because he didn't plan on any of this. That's the greatest thing about the book. He talks about it in the book. It's like, I never planned any of this the way it worked. It was totally, in fact, I had to give up control, and then better things happened than I could have planned, which that's a good way to live life.
Optimum.
Yes, indeed. So the last book.
And the last one by somebody we all know and care about.
This one I do have my own copy of. It's my own book. And to be transparent, I'm obviously talking about favorite books. Yes, it is my favorite book because I wrote it. But the thing about it for me is that it's become such a pivot point for me, because I'm still, even though I put it with a list of all these other authors I love and admire, part of me still has this thing about, I'm an author. it's everything's inside the book. And even though I see it physically in my hands and people read it and tell me about it, I have these moments of going, no, it's not me, because I never thought I could. So writing the book has been a great, for me, an up level, because it's ownership. It's recognition about what I've done. And yes, in the book, I do quote from other teachers like Alison Armstrong, David Data, Gain Katie Hendricks, etc., because those teachers influenced my work. And so for me, that was such a pivot point, and why this book is so important to me. And yes, I do mention it on my every time I'm on podcasts or on summits and often to my clients, because it'll help them work things out. I mean, there's 50 principles, the way I put it is, it's 50 principles for power, 50 powerful principles for passionate and richly rewarding relationships. So it's stuff that works. Thank you for that, CC. 5 stars.
5 stars. Yay.
Thank you. So it's a book that works, and I recommend everybody read it. I'm biased, of course, because the book's written in a way that is easily digestible chapters. Yeah. The principles are simple, clear, and additive. And for many people, it's like, it could be that easy. Mm-hmm. So, somebody read it. Ooh, somebody
read it. Maybe Cece, somebody else.
Maybe. I wonder who's typing that in. Must be that producer.
I know. I think so.
But the thing is, I was actually talking about it today, because I saw a post on one of the groups I'm in. We're talking about these articles about people who go out the reason why I was talking about this was that the guy who I know and that runs the group posted this article about going away too soon in a relationship when you're not loyal, when you're not committed to somebody, can be really messy. Mm-hmm. And I said, chapter, I think it's 26 in my book, talks about this. Like, when you get into a committed relationship, go away early on, because you'll discover if that relationship's going to work or not, because going away together will change your relationship. Oh. So that's one of the 50 principles in my book, is an awareness of that. So those are the things I talk about, is the keys to a relationship that will make or break, and stuff I've learned myself, stuff I see my clients go through. So I don't quote anybody. I don't recommend any clients, don't expose any clients in the book, but there's teachings that will help you have an amazing relationship. So that's my book.
As it should be. I knew it was going to be on your list. If it wasn't, I was going to say it, but I knew you would.
I appreciate that.
Of course. Yes, because you're a very wise man, and people get to read your wise words. So there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you want to know more of our favorite books, you could contact us. If you're having challenges with your lack of relationship or a relationship you're in, please contact us. And the way that you contact me is through my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. And on it, you click on what's holding you back from love. And then we can have a personal, private conversation about what's going on and what's not going on, and what's making you unhappy and what might make you happier. You can also send me a personal email at christine@theperfectcatch.com. You can also find me on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest and Instagram and YouTube.
Oh. Nicely done. Nicely done. Yeah, she did it.
I'm glad you're there to help me if I forget something, though, because you're always a good help about that. And please tell them how they get a hold of you, Barry.
Absolutely. So to make it easier, all my social media and my website is the same, which is Barry Selby. So barryselby.com is my website, except Instagram, I'll get to that in a minute. So on my website, on the front page, you can, if you want to get help, you can click on the Take Your First Step, which will be a chance to get booked on a call with me. So you see who you are and what you're looking for and what isn't working and how we get you where you want to go. At the bottom of the front home screen, if you click down at the bottom, there's a chance to join my email list, so you get notifications of things I do and I'm about. So I recommend doing that. Also, my website is my book. So if you go to barryselby.com/book, you get your own copy, which is on Amazon, but you can get it from there too. And then you can email me at barry@barryselby.com. And again, all my social media except for Instagram is Barry Selby. So YouTube, Pinterest, Facebook, LinkedIn, Clubhouse. Yes, I'm on Clubhouse actively. I was on there early today. There was one other one which come back to me, but then Instagram is the real Barry Selby, because that account, my original account of Barry Selby, got disappeared. So I'm now the real Barry Selby. But you can find me on social
YouTube with all your videos.
Oh, duh. How did I forget that?
So YouTube. It was my turn this time to help you.
Thank you. I appreciate you catching me on that one.
My pleasure.
So youtube.com/Barry Selby is where you find, well, I've got 1,400 videos or thereabouts on there now. So if you want some free advice, go check out my YouTube channel, subscribe there, and check out my videos. Some of them include us, because I have a whole bunch of our web shows up there too.
I saw.
Yeah, keep them safe.
And I do too. So there you go. They can see our videos everywhere.
That's the idea.
And we are back next week at 1 o'clock Western time and 4 o'clock Eastern time and all the times in between with another scintillating, interesting show about let's talk about dating and relationships.
Absolutely. We're back again then. We'll see you soon.
Yeah. Bye for now.